here's another thing that happened yesterday while I was not streaming, unfortunately, but they released a banger of a live stream, or not released, they had a banger of a live stream yesterday, which is over an hour long. So we're not gonna watch it together. We're gonna look at the individual pieces of information from it separately. But this was a banger. I didn't get the opportunity to watch through the entire thing, but I watched some of it this morning, and it was just Billy and Jerome having a good time and revealing a lot of new stuff from Rage of the Abyss. So we have a bunch of news to go over. We have a bunch of cards to cover. We have some stuff, and I think it's cool that they do this. I like getting the information about the new stuff in like a coordinated way in a live stream. I'm a big fan of them doing it this way. And also shout outs to, hold up, I messed up my thingy. Here we are. Shout outs to Ready for Duel for compiling all of the info over on Twitter, of course, because that gives me a very easy way to look at it. Now, some of it is completely new information. Some of it is just like revealing the rarities for certain cards that we already knew were in the set. So those we're going to cover relatively fast. But they did talk about the new, this one was called, it was called Primordial. Now it is called Primite. Think of that what you will. I personally think Primordial was a cooler name. But the continuous spell is going to be a secret rare. And the dragon is going to be an ultra rare. And then they also showed some of the Metal Morph cards. There's a random True Draco deck profile from the OCG in here. Heart of the Eyes of Blue, or Heart of the Blue Eyes, is going to be a secret rare, which is the one that's also treated as a Millennium card. We also knew about this card. Then we've got the Red Eyes Black Full Metal as an ultra rare. We've got Metal Illusionist, but all of those are cards we knew about. And here we're getting into the real deal. They just revealed the entire second wave of Mimighoul support in the stream. And I haven't read these yet, but there was quite a bit of hype surrounding these this morning. So I am actually expecting good stuff here. We'll see. We've got Mimighoul Throne, an ultra rare in Rage of the Abyss, which requires 2 level 1 Mimighoul monsters. You can detach 1 material from this card, special summon a Mimighoul Master from your hand, deck, or graveyard. During the main phase, quick effect, you can target a Mimighoul Master you control, equip this card to it as an equip spell that gives it 1000 attack. Then you can return cards from the field to the hand up to the number of materials this card had. You can only use 1 Mimighoul Throne effect per turn, and only once that turn. Now that is a good rank 1 for Mimighoul. No? So what this card does is if you can get 2 Mimighouls on the board, you just make this, you get an extender out of it, a master. You're supposed to leave that master on the field alongside the throne, pass turn, and then on your opponent's turn, it'll also give you a bounce. I think that is a very good card for the Mimighoul archetype. That gives you it. I think it's, I'm very happy, by the way, that we're going the rank 1 route here. I'm very happy we're making Mimighoul rank 1s instead of Mimighoul fusions and stuff like that. Because I feel like this is what Mimighoul needed in an extent. Because one question that was always there when you were playing Mimighoul is, what do you do? Like, you give the Mimighouls to your opponent, you flip them up, they come back to you. Now, what do you do with them, right? That was always, they didn't have any extra deck monsters so far, but like, it only makes sense that like you want to turn them into something that is good, right? Like, and so rank 1s make sense because they're all level 1s. At least I think they're all level 1s. Maybe there is one that isn't. Like, I know Master is not level 1, but I think all the flip ones are level 1s. So like, now you have something to turn them into, right? That's cool. And the payoff for this is decent, right? You get another master and you get a bounce on the opponent's turn. Not bad. And you even have another option, which is Giant Mimighoul, which is a secret rare, and it looks kind of dope, honestly. You've got 2 level 1 monsters, so this one is generic as opposed to the other one. The other one needs Mimighouls, this one is generic. Your non-Xyz Mimighouls can attack directly while your opponent controls a face-down monster. Ooh, that gives you some cheese win cons, right? Like you just like give them one and ignore their entire board and swing. All right. You can only use each of the following effects of Giant Mimighoul once per turn. If this card is Xyz summoned, you can add a Mimighoul card from your deck to your hand. Okay. You can detach one material from this card. Target face-up cards on the field up to the number of face-down monsters your opponent controls. Destroy them, and if you do, inflict 1,000 damage to your opponent for each card destroyed. This is also pretty powerful. It's funny that it's 2 level 1s. So Snake Eye Ash is Mimighoul combo now, because Ash summon Poplar, make Giant Mimighoul, add 1. This is good, right? On summon, add 1, and gives you a good effect going second to pop your opponent's cards. Solid. So basically, what I like about these two together is that Mimighoul Throne seems to be a better option to go into going first, because both of these cards, when you make them, will create for you another Mimighoul card, right? Like you overlay 2 monsters. This one gives you access to Mimighoul Master. This one gives you access to any Mimighoul card. So both of them will give you a +1 or like an extra Mimighoul card when you make them. This one is particularly strong, I think, going first because it does provide an interruption on your opponent's turn. This one is a better option going second because it also has the pop effect, right? So like you can just choose which one to go into depending on what the situation is. Obviously, you could also make Giant Mimighoul on turn 1. I could also see the Mimighoul deck going down a route where you make both of these in a certain combo and then just turn them into like F-Zero, what is it called? Draco Future, whatever. It could be a thing. I don't know. Oh yeah. These are good. So these are the extra deck monsters, and they got a bunch of main deck cards as well. So the split this time is 2 spells, 2 extra deck monsters, and 3 monsters. Let's go for the monsters next. Mimighoul Armor, Warrior Flip. Basically for these, the cool thing is we only have to read the flip effect because everything else is the same, right? We only have to read the first flip effect. This turn, Mimighoul monsters cannot be destroyed by battle. Okay, that is not good. Not really, it's different. Oh. Okay. During your main phase, spare some discard to your opponent's field face down. Spare some discard. Oh, okay. I remember because they also had different effects on the secondary one. Yeah, okay. So this one is flip effect. This turn, Mimighouls can't be destroyed by battle. And then it comes back to you. During your main phase, you can special summon it to your opponent's field in face down position. Or if your opponent controls a monster, you can summon it to your field. That is not something that the other ones have. So this one, the flip effect is very mediocre. I'll say it. The flip effect is very mediocre. The use of this card is that you can use it as an extender to go into your rank 1s, right? Like you give your opponent a Mimighoul and then you can summon this to your side of the field as a level 1 extender, which I don't know if that's worth it. I do not know if that's worth it. But it's not terrible. But maybe it's just the worst one. I don't know. Mimighoul Theory. The flip effect is, this turn, you cannot activate the effects of monsters special summoned from your hand. Ooh. That's a powerful effect. So... no Diabell Star, no Poplar. No... does this hit you, Bell, even? Not really, right? It does block... it hits like... Kashtira. It hits Chandra. No Squirmer? No, it does. The Squirmer does not care about this. Sharvara also does not care about this. You guys don't understand this effect, guys. This card does not say you cannot activate anything in hand. It just says after you have summoned from hand, you cannot use the effect. Squirmer does not care about this at all. And Sharvara also does not. But it is good against Tenpai and Snake Eyes. During your main phase, you can special summon this card to your opponent's field in face down defense position, or if you control a Mimighoul monster, you can special summon this card face up on your field. You can only use... So this is just a better version of this. Because both of these are extenders to your side of the field if you need to go into a rank 1, but this one actually has a meaningful flip effect. So I think Fairy is just a slightly better version of Mimighoul armor. But alas. Okay, this one is potentially pretty powerful depending on the format and what kind of decks there are. Mimighoul Slime. If it's the main phase, apply these effects in sequence. Your opponent can special summon a Mimighoul monster from their deck to their field. Oh, that's nice. Ooh, that's cool. Okay. We get any Mimighoul from the deck, and then we get this card. So this is literally a... I mean, I say one card rank 1 because it's not really a one card, because you have to give it to your opponent and then you have to make them flip it up, right? But this one, if it resolves, you will get 2 bodies out of it. The other one is you can special summon it from your hand to your opponent's field in face down position, or if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can special summon this card face up on your field. Okay, so they all have a very similar secondary effect. They're not exactly the same, but they can all be extenders for your own field if you don't want to give them to your opponent. With just slightly different conditions, right? Slightly different conditions, but they all function as an extender on your own side of the field if you want. Okay. Not bad. Not bad. This one I think is the best one, followed by this one, which is, in some ways, it's only good because it's toxic, right? It's only good because, like, it stops your opponent from doing certain things in their deck, like Dia Bellstar and Poplar and Chandra and so on and so forth. But potentially a pretty good one. Slime is my favorite, though. Slime's my favorite because it doesn't have a floodgate attached to it. Mimighoul Charm is something that I feel like this was revealed beforehand, I think. I'm not sure. Let me read it because I forgot what it does anyways. Once per chain, during the main phase, if a Mimighoul monster your opponent controls is flipped face up, you can randomly choose a face down card in your opponent's extra deck, and if it is a monster that can be special summoned to your field, but it cannot activate its effect this turn. If it wasn't or couldn't be special summoned, banish. Yeah, this was the extra deck rip one. The fact that it's random obviously makes it a lot worse. But it's like, it just... This would have made more sense if they gave Mimighouls a link monster. Like, if they gave them a link 2 that said, like, 2 monsters, including a Mimighoul. Because then, this could be used as, like, you would just get your second material from your opponent's extra deck. And then you make your Mimighoul link 2 with it, right? That would have been cool. Because right now, I don't really see a great use out of taking my opponent's extra deck monster, other than obviously them not having it anymore, right? Them not having it anymore is fine, is cool. The problem with that is that, like, you can't choose, it's random. So, like, sometimes you will hit their, I don't know, Fiendsmith sequence, and that's crazy. Actually, they can just summon it. They can shuffle it back, Fiendsmith sequence, and that, I don't know, like, maybe you hit their one of SP or whatever. Like, it can be good, but it's random, so it can also just be irrelevant. Mimighoul Fork. Target a face-down monster your opponent controls. Your opponent chooses one of the following effects, and you apply that effect. Change it to face-up attack or defense position, or send it to the graveyard, then its owner draws 2 cards. You can banish this card from your grave, add a Mimighoul Fork from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect once per turn. I get it. I get it. It's a fork. It's a fork because it forks your opponent into 2 decisions that are not great for them. Potentially. Because, like, I honestly think most of the time, your opponent is just going to choose the second effect. Which means I think this is, like, not that great. It's not terrible either. It really isn't. But it's like trade-in, right? Because like you give them a Mimighoul from your hand, which you go -1 for, and then you can use this, which gets rid of the Mimighoul, and you draw 2 cards. So like you kind of like just used trade-in on that Mimighoul card, and you get another fork from your deck. So you do go +1, but that card is once per turn, so you don't really have a use for it. Yeah. Can this be ashed? I think so. Should have been a quick play. Could have been a quick play, I can agree with, because then you could have actually used the second copy of fork that you search on your opponent's turn. Okay. Now, let me get all of these. Hold up. Let me use the YG organization article because it has all of them lined up. I think that there is some stuff to be happy about. There's some cards here that I think are slightly on the weaker side. I do really like, the best here is by far is the 2 extra deck monsters. The 2 extra deck monsters are very good, and also important that they are good because they are easy to access every single game. Like that is the 2 extra deck monsters definitely solve a problem for this deck where you need to turn your Mimighouls into something meaningful, and these 2 cards are meaningful things to turn your level 1 monsters into. I like that a lot. Mimighoul Slime is very powerful. I like that. Mimighoul Fairy is solid, but it revolves around the floodgate effect. So that is, first of all, not the greatest way to design, but second of all, it also is very heavily dependent on what other decks are in the format, because sometimes this is going to be an insane effect, sometimes it's going to be terrible, and sometimes it's just going to be okay, right? But overall, Mimighoul Fairy is good. Mimighoul Armor is a little disappointing because I felt like the only thing that this had going for it was the fact that like you can summon it. Like it's awkward because I read this one first, so I was like, hey, at least it's an extender. But then the other 2 are also just extenders. Right? Like it's like awkward in that sense. The spell cards, I feel like they both have a unique like flavor to them, which I think is cool. That's one thing I really like about the Mimighoul cards, is they really make you think about the game in a different way. Like Fork and Charm are both cards that are very, very unusual design-wise, which doesn't necessarily make it bad. I just have a feeling that both of these are, while not bad, maybe slightly not good enough to see play in competitive. But yeah, Maker is very powerful now. Maker, because of the addition of Slime, you now have basically always 2 very broken things that you can, like, forever, whichever situation you're in, you can always just Maker for 2 really good Mimighouls, right? Like, and no matter which one you get, no matter which one the opponents gets, you're happy, right? That's pretty cool about Maker. Here's the thing. Is this deck gonna be competitive now? Probably not, but that is not because the second wave sucks. It's because of this. Hold up. And obviously some of you have already mentioned it, but this card is also in Rage of the Abyss. Dominus Impulse is a card that says, it works like Dominus Purge, where it's a hand trap, but if you use it from your hand, you cannot activate the effects of light, earth, and wind monsters for the rest of this duel. The reason why this card is so good against Mimighoul is because if your opponent uses Dominus Impulse, which is a card that a bunch of meta decks use, because light, earth, wind is like, you can still use dark monsters, you can still use fire monsters, so a lot of meta decks can use this card. And water as well. If your opponent uses this card, they are locked out of earth for the rest of the game. which means that if you give them a Mimighoul and it flips, it just can't activate. So this card invalidates the Mimighoul deck, kind of, which is very unfortunate. It's very, very unfortunate, because if your opponent opens Dominus Impulse, your Mimighoul deck basically stops working immediately. Like, all of your Mimighouls are now extenders for your opponent, and nothing, like, you can do nothing about it. Like, your opponent has basically floodgated themselves, but it only floodgates your deck, right? So that is a problem. That is a problem with Mimighoul, because all of these are Earth. There's not even like a workaround. There's not even like other options that you can go for that are not Earth, so that you maybe have a different game plan under Dominus Impulse. No, if your opponent has Dominus Impulse, the Mimighoul deck just loses, right? So, but I do think, regardless, this is a good second wave of support for the deck itself. You know, there might be a format. There might be a format where people simply don't play Dominus Impulse. You know, and then you can cook with Mimighoul. It's a deck worth trying now. And it honestly looks competent. It's a competent second wave of support. Not all of it's crazy, you know, like it could have been better. Like Mimighoul Armor could have been better. The 2 spell cards could have been slightly better, you know. But the extra deck stuff is really powerful, and extra deck, I feel like it is. I feel like one of the main reasons why some of the other TCG exclusive archetypes have failed recently is because the extra deck stuff just wasn't it, right? Because extra deck cards are the ones that you're going to be accessing every single game, right? Like, no matter what you're doing, if you're playing a Mimighoul deck, you will have access to Mimighoul Throne and Giant Mimighoul every single game. And because they're good cards, that matters a lot. Right? Like, if the Ashen Fusions would have been like really good and really worth going for, like maybe that could have saved the deck, but it's the extra deck cards that were made mediocre, kind of, and I think that's what made it fail. And so for Mimighoul, I can see a concept here. You know, I see a concept here. Maybe you can even find like maybe you can find a rank 1 engine. Like maybe there's a package you can use that makes like a 1-card rank 1 or something as a starter, because Giant Mimighoul just adds any Mimighoul card, right? Even Mimighoul Maker, right? This adds cards, not just Mimighoul monsters. This adds Mimighoul Maker. This adds the field spell. Like it's great, right? So maybe there's a 1-card rank 1 that you can play now. Who knows? We'll see. Very cool wave of support, in my opinion. Very, very cool. Like that. Was that all? That was all. All right.